Evening YouTube. So I'm back with part 2 of the wanted list, and that is amplifiers and receivers that I want to buy for the channel. So let's crack on with this. Let me get my pad down and we shall carry on from where I left off in the last video. So here we go, part 2 of the rattlesnake wanted list. And I won't be getting right through this list today, so there will be other videos after this one. And it is like the never ending list that keeps growing, 'cause me, James and my missus keep remembering other stuff that we had years ago and we really liked, and then that goes on the list as well, so the list just keeps getting longer and longer. Now this list is in no particular order, it is just in the way it got wrote down, so there's no order to this list whatsoever, it is random. And this list really is just my list of stuff I was hunting down on the computer, because I was writing stuff down to remember what stuff to look for when I'm looking for something to buy. But then when my missus saw the list, she went to me, you should make a video about that and show the people what stuff you're after for the channel. Right, so let's crack on. Where was I? Right, the last one I did on video 1 was a vintage Marantz. So next up on the list is a bit of a classic, and it is the Pioneer SX590. Now this is from 1978. It's made in Japan and it's 20 watts per channel into 8 ohms. And it's a really good receiver, this 590. Now I've had the 590 and the 690, and I don't really think there's much between them sound wise. The 690 is a little bit more powerful, but I really don't think it sounds any better than the 590. Now I want one of these for two reasons really. For the first reason is I really rate these receivers. I do think they are decent sounding, and I love the VU meters on them. Sitting there watching them bounce away with all the face lit up does make this range quite special. And also there is a bit of a nostalgia connection I've got with the old Pioneer 590, because when I was younger, my friend Clive had a big amplifier and receiver collection, and I used to go round his house and listen to it all. And he had one of these 590s, and we used to connect different speakers up to it and play around with it and that. And I thought the 590 with them bouncing VU meters really was a special amplifier. And then when I first got my own one, I really loved it. I had it in my bedroom for ages. Used to put different little speakers on it and just run it in my bedroom while I was getting ready to go out or whatever. So I've got a connection with this 590, so that is why I want one of these for my little collection. Now obviously if a 690 come up at a bargain price, then yeah, I would buy the 690, but in the real world the 590 is quite a bit cheaper than the 690, and I do think it's as good really, so that's why I will probably end up getting a 590. Now next up is another bit of vintage. Now this one is not a receiver, it's a vintage amplifier, and it is the Sansui 2900. Now this one, it's made in Japan, it's from 1976, and it's 15 watts per channel into 8 ohms. So it's not a very powerful one, this one, but I really rate this little Sansui. And I've had a couple of these over the years, and what I have found with this one is it is a little bit fussy with what speakers you put on it. It doesn't work with everything. So some speakers on this Sansui won't work and it will not sound that good. But if you get the right set of speakers on this Sansui amp, it really is a nice sounding amplifier. Now I do watch YouTube, and on YouTube I feel that this AU 2900 gets a bit of a hard time because people, I don't think, understand you need to find the right speakers for this. Because reviews I watch about this amplifier, people get their hands on it, do a little review on it, and then they kind of mug it off and say it doesn't sound as good as the other Sansuis in this range. When I think they're wrong on that, I don't think they've given it a chance. They have not hunted through a load of speakers until they have found something that is a perfect match for this. Because if you get something that is a perfect match for this little Sansui really does sing like a canary, and it can hold its own against any of them other little Sansuis, it really can. Now next up I've got an amplifier from the 90s, and I bet a lot of you don't even know that this one existed or how good it is, because this one is something a little bit special. It is dual mono and it is very underrated because you can pick this one up quite cheap for what it is, and if you're someone that loves your music with a ton of bass, then this one is right up your alley, because the bass on one of these is something a bit special, and it is an Acoustics Research A07. It's an amplifier from 1991. It is 60 watts per channel, and like I said, it is dual mono. And this one really has got a ton of power for a 60 watt per channel amplifier, and I think that's because it's dual mono in it. All the dual mono stuff always seems to be much more powerful than its watt rating, and this one is no exception. Now, the first one of these I ever had my hands on was a 4, and I found it in a cash converters. I see it and thought, oh, Acoustic Research. I've never seen one of them, so I just bought it. And then when I got it home and gave it a service, I've opened it up and looking at it, and I'm thinking, God, this thing's dual mono. And then I fired it up, and I was really impressed with it. I was a bit blown away by how good it sounded, because this range of Acoustic Research amplifiers really are decent sounding. So once I knew how good the 4 it was, I started looking up about these things, and I found out the bigger one was the 7. So I thought, right, I need to hear that 7. So I did track one down and I bought it. And yeah, the 7 is something really special. And I had them both at the same time. I had a massive set of monitor audio gold floor standers, big uns from the 80s. I can't remember the model, but they was massive. And I had this 7 connected up to the bass on it, because they was like by wire or by amped. I had the 7 connected up to the bass, and I had a 4 connected up to the top end, to the tweeters and that, and running both the amplifiers together. And I'll tell you what, my lounge was like a nightclub, and it sounded fantastic with 2 of these running a big set of audio monitor floor standers. Now, over the years, I've had the 4, the 5, and the 7 in this range, but the 7 is the best one. It's something a little bit special for the money, this 7, because it really doesn't make that much money, and it really is a good amplifier. So I know on this list, a lot of them I'm saying, if I find one cheap, I'm going to buy one. But with one of these 7s, I will 100% get one, because I think they're fantastic value for money, and they really are a good sounding amplifier. So next up, I've got another vintage amplifier from 1979, and a lot of you will probably look at this one and go, why does he want one of them? Well, I'll tell you, I want one of these for the nostalgia. Now, it's a JVC AS5. It's from 1979 and it's 30 watts per channel. And I had one of these when I was a kid and I absolutely loved it. It was quite massive. It looked really good and I had it for years. So me and James used to use the old JVC all the time. Now I know it's not going to be the greatest amplifier ever made, but I do remember our old one sounding all right. But I might get another one now, and I might be disappointed with the sound. But I will still love it because it was something I had when I was a kid. And I have been looking on the computer at these, and there's some of them on there in the buy it now, and I think people are having a laugh with the price because there's been a couple on there for a right load of money. You could have probably bought a Pioneer SX434 for the same price when this JVC isn't worth the money of one of them Pioneers. So don't buy one of these JVCs in the buy it now because I've also seen a few in the auction and I've clicked them in my watch list and then looked up what they have made in the finish, and they haven't made that much, so you will get hold of one of these cheap. Now, I didn't bid on the ones that was in my watch list because I would have already bought an amplifier or a receiver that week, and I can't be buying loads of them every week. What I'm trying to do is just buy one every time I get paid. But I have got one of these clicked in my watch list as we speak, and it isn't working, but it does look in really nice condition. So I'm going to go after that one. So hopefully that one has got my name written all over it. Well, as long as it doesn't make too much money. So next up is a vintage receiver. Now there's a few reasons why I want one of these. One is because I really think this is a good receiver, and the second reason is for the nostalgia, because one of these was the first monster receiver that I ever got my hands on, and I absolutely loved it. And it is an Akai AA1050, a massive beast of a receiver, big heavy monster from Akai. Now this one is from 1976, and according to Hi-Fi Engine, this one is 50 watts per channel. And when I looked that up, that surprised me a little bit because I did think our old one was a lot more powerful than that. It was so loud. I thought it was more like 1,000,000 watts per channel when I was young, but obviously it wasn't. It was just 50 watts per channel, but it did have a lot of power for a 50-watt receiver. It really did. And the other thing I loved about the one we had years ago, it had three sets of speaker terminals, so you could put three sets of speakers on it. Now, I don't think it would run all three together. I can't really remember. I think it would just run two sets at a time. But where you could connect three sets of speakers up to it, we used to use the old Akai for speaker testing because you could change between speakers 1, 2 and 3 while you was playing some music and test out the speakers. So we used to use the old Akai a lot for that. It was our like test receiver for checking out speakers. And now, over the years, I've had quite a lot of these old Akais from the 70s. I've had quite a lot of this AA range, different ones. So I had wrote a few down on the list, because all of these old Akais, they are good receivers. But then when I was going through the list thinking, right, what Akai do I want? There was only one. It had to be the AA1050 that I go after. Because like I said, it was the first monster that I ever got my hands on, and I absolutely loved it. So there was only one Akai to go after for me, and it was this AA1050. Now I do know if I want one of these, I'm going to have to pay a bit of money for it, because these are not cheap. These are very sought after, and a lot of people want these old big Akais, and I do understand why. They are really good. So if I want one of these, I'm going to have to get my money out, but I am willing to do that for one of these old Akais, because that's how much I want one. So next up is another vintage receiver, and I do think this one is another one that's a little bit underrated, because it doesn't make the big bucks, but it's a really good receiver. And it is a Rotel RX 600A. Now this one's from 1973 and it's 30 watts per channel, but it has got the pre-out main-in couplers, so you can use this one as a preamp or a power amp, and that's what I loved about this one back in the day, because I didn't have many amps and receivers that did that, but my old Rotel used to, so I loved it because of that, because I could use it as a preamp and put other more powerful power amps on it and stuff. And the preamp on this Rotel was really good. If I used to plug one of these into a more powerful power amp, I used to get a really good sound out of it. And the actual power amp side of this Rotel, that is pretty good as well, because I used to put like a more modern preamp into the power amp on this Rotel, and that worked really well as well. So I used to have a lot of fun playing around with my old Rotel 600. And if you put the couplers back in it and just used it like a normal receiver, it really did have a good sound to it, this old Rotel. You could just tell that it had a load of quality parts in it, because it was really smooth and really did have a lovely sound to it. And it had really good bass on it. It had that lovely laid back deep bass. So in the bass department, this old Rotel sounds a bit like some of the Sansuis do, with that really deep laid back bass. Or my old one did anyway, because they're all going to sound a bit different now they are getting on in years. And I have also had the 400, which is very similar to the 600. So if one of the 400s comes up at the right price, I might even buy one of them 400s, because I do rate that one as well. But really, at the end of the day, because of the nostalgia and how much time I spent with one of these 600s, the 600 is the one that I really would like to get hold of again. So next up is another vintage receiver, and I really like this receiver. I've had quite a few of them over the years, because there was a time I just kept finding these in charity shops and second-hand shops, so I have had a fair few of these, and it is a Sony STR 3036A. Now it's 15 watts per channel, and it's from 1972, this one, so it is quite an old receiver, but it's a decent receiver, and it's on the list because I think with this one you are getting good bang for your buck, because although one of these isn't dirt cheap, they don't really make that much money. Well, not in the auction. This is another one where in that buy it now, people think one of these Sonys is worth a ton of money. So if you want one of these, do not buy one of these in the buy it now. Get one in the auction, because they really don't make that much money. Well, not for how good a receiver you are getting, because it is a good receiver, this one. When it's all lit up, it looks really stylish, one of these Sonys, and it has got the sound to back it up, so it is a nice little receiver to own. Now, if you're looking at this and you like the look of it, but you're thinking, oh, I like that, but it hasn't got enough power for me, they do a bigger one, a 6046. but that one I think is a lot more rare than this one, so that one makes a lot more money. And I've had that one before, and at the end of the day, I really didn't think it was no better than this one. It just had a little bit more power. Now, next up on the list, this is one that I think is really budget friendly, because I've been trying to think of stuff to get for the channel where you get a really decent sound for not a lot of money. So this is one of them, and it is a Pioneer A333. Now this one is from 1988 and it is 40 watts per channel, and you can get your hands on one of these for not a lot of money, and it has got a decent sound to it, this Pioneer. And over the years I've had a lot of this 80s stuff that you can pick up for no money, and to tell you the truth, a lot of it isn't that good. But this Pioneer is one that sticks in my head as being a good one. I remember first getting my hands on one of these and being pretty impressed with it, thinking, God, that Pioneer has got a decent sound to it for the money. Because obviously this Pioneer is not a high-end amplifier, so it's not going to sound like a high-end amplifier. It's a cheap budget amplifier, and you have to look at it like that. And when you look at it for the price you can get your hands on one of these, it really is a good one. Of all the little cheap budget amplifiers that I've had over the years, this Pioneer A333 definitely was one of the better ones. Well, from memory anyway, because it has been a few years since I've heard one of these Pioneers in action, so that is why I would like to get another one for the channel so I can test it out and see if my memory is correct and one of these Pioneers really is a bit of a bargain, and see if it really does sound as good as I remember it sounding for not a lot of money. So next up I'm going for another vintage receiver. Now I'm going a bit more high end this time, and I'm planning to spend money again. So what am I going after? Well, I am after a Yamaha CR600. Now one of these is from 1974 and it's 30 watts per channel. And if you've never heard one of these Yamahas in action, you really are missing out, because they are so clean sounding, it is unreal, and they sound very different to most other vintage receivers. So you've got to have one of these on the channel so you can compare it to other stuff and try different speakers and that out on it, because one of these Yamahas is a very different beast to most of the stuff that I've got. And same again, I've had quite a lot of this Yamaha gear over the years because I really like it. I've had a lot of the 50 series, the 20 series and this 00 series. So when I was thinking through of all the ones I've had, and I'm thinking, right, what one would I like? The one that was coming to mind was this 600, because I really rate this one. But I was thinking, oh, if I buy one of them, I'm going to leave myself really skint, because that's going to cost a lot of money. But then I thought, yeah, but once you've got it sitting on the table in front of you, I know I will think it is worth every penny, because one of these 600s is just a fantastic receiver. I did think about getting the 400 because that's still really a good receiver, but this 600 is better because it's just so much bigger. It's such a lovely thing to have sitting in front of you. It's like a proper work of art, this 600. and it sounds so clean, this 600. It really is a good sounding receiver. It's like magical listening to one of these with a good set of speakers on it. So that is why I decided that if I'm going to buy one, I'm going to go for broke, skimp myself out and try and get a CR600. Right, so next up is another one that is sort of on the list because I thought it was a really good receiver, and it is also on the list for a bit of nostalgia, and it is a Kenwood KR4140. Now it's from 1970, this one, so it's quite an old one, and it's 18 watts per channel. And also this one has got the pre-out main in, so you can uncouple this one and use it as a preamp and a power amp. And that's what I used to do with one of these back in the day, because this was another one. This was one of the first ones I had with the pre-out main in, and once I learnt how all that worked when I was younger, I loved receivers and amplifiers where I could plug another preamp into them, or use them as a power amp, or plug them into a power amp and use them as a preamp. I loved all that. I'd spend hours just playing around with them. Me and James would have this plugged into that and then swap them over and have that plugged into this. So one of these Kenwoods, we spent ages with it, playing around with it. We had it at the same time as we had the Rotel RX 600, so the pair of these would have got plugged in together. And from what I can remember with this Kenwood, when you just put the couplers back in and use this as a normal receiver, it was a really decent sounding receiver, this old Kenwood. It really was. It had lovely low end to it. It really did. It had nice deep bass, and it had that bass that really used to like drive into you with a load of power. And although this one is only 18 watts per channel, it did used to seem like it was more powerful than that, because the way it used to really drive the bass, it did seem like it had a lot more power behind it than that. But obviously it didn't, because Hi-Fi Engine says that this one is 18 watts per channel. And I've been on the computer a few times looking for one of these to buy, but it's a bit dangerous looking for one of these, because I really love the old vintage Kenwood stuff. So when I'm on the computer hunting through Kenwood stuff, trying to find one of these, I keep finding something else that I like. So the last two times that I've been on the computer looking for one of these 4140s, I've ended up buying a different vintage Kenwood receiver. So it's a bit dangerous for me looking for one of these. So hopefully I will find one soon, so I haven't got to look anymore, because otherwise I'm going to end up with about 20 Kenwood receivers around me. Right, so this video's getting quite long now, so I'm going to make this the last one. So hang on a minute, I've dropped my list. Right, here we go. This last one is something a little bit special, and I absolutely love this vintage receiver. And it's the oldest one in today's video, because this one is from 1969, and it is the Pioneer SX440, and this one is 12 watts per channel, and I love this little Pioneer. I've had a couple of these over the years, and there's something special about this little receiver, there really is. So this is another one that is not one that I'm going to buy if I find one cheap. This is one that I am 100% going to buy for the channel, because this is one of my favourite little low powered receivers. To do that close up listening and that I do with a little set of speakers, this Pioneer SX440 is just fantastic at doing that, and it really delivers a good sound. You get a ton of detail out of one of these. It's got a lovely bottom end, it's got a really nice top end, and you wouldn't believe that this little receiver is only 12 watts per channel, because it has got some power to it, this little Pioneer, it really has. And I've had speakers connected up to one of these before with like a 10 or 12-inch driver in them, and you really wouldn't think this little 12 watt per channel amp would drive them. But it does, it'll drive them with ease, and it'll pump a really good sound out of them. Whereas a lot of little amps or receivers with 10 or 12 watts of power, they won't drive a big speaker with a 12-inch driver in it, but this little 440 will, and I love this little 440 for that, because it is the tiny low-powered receiver that thinks it is a big powerful receiver. And it will not be beat. You could put a big set of floor standers on this little receiver and you'll think it's not going to drive them any good, they're going to be too much for it. And then you turn up the volume on the 440 and not only will it drive them, but it'll drive them really well and pump a really good sound out of them. And in the background you can hear the little 440 shouting, saying, "Huh, is that all you've got? That was too easy. Ain't you got nothing bigger?" So you've just got to love the little Pioneer SX440, because it might be the little baby of the bunch, a little tiny 12 watts per channel Pioneer receiver. But no one at Pioneer has ever told it that. So this little receiver thinks it's a monster. I really do think that one of these does think it's an SX 1980. So thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.